Today I would like for us to talk about one other interesting topic about relationships, which is of highly importance to me. Let us begin. We'll be talking today about abuse. Nowadays abuse is a topic all over. I just want us to look at some of the important things about abuse and some of different kinds of abuse that we have, and maybe highlight few of them to you and give you some examples, and most of all, hopefully that in the end we'll try and motivate and encourage one another to guard against some of the behaviors that we'll be talking about here, and most of all to be able to help one another to move away from being an abusive partner or being an abused partner. How do you stand up against such behavior? Because this has to do with the behavior of a person. So let's begin. There is this commonly used definition of abuse which is used all over. It is said that abuse it's a pattern of behavior used by one person to gain and maintain power and control over the other. It's all about different patterns of behavior. It makes the other person to begin to feel less of a person, or to begin to feel like they are inferior, you are superior, or they need to philele wena tshwantse ba be ka tlase go puso ya hao kore wena o morena yena ke motho ana fela go wena. So we need to try and change that as a society, that we look at each other ka tsela e tshwanetseng, we treat each other ka tsela e tshwanetseng. You see, this thing ya abuse starts very small. It starts like it's love. It starts like it's someone trying to protect you. It starts like your partner loves you so much that you are so important to them, you are so special to them that hababatle talk away. Ulika protect from all these things. You look at it in that way. We wanna when I into right at first when they start to be abusive. They start saying things that will make you to start to think that no, maybe I'm wrong, maybe he's innocent, maybe he's trying to help, maybe he's looking at me, maybe won't understand, maybe uzama hum protect, maybe uzama hum tusa, maybe uzama hum get out. It starts small. It starts like in twenyan, as if how bonu ilo fella ka in twena mutona uzama fella hoba secure, uzama fella hoba protective, uzama fella hoba right with you, and in the end there are 6 kinds of abuse. The first one will be physical abuse. There's going to be sexual abuse, a verbal or emotional abuse, mental or psychological abuse, financial or economic abuse, and then the last one will be cultural or beliefs or identity abuse. Alright, let me begin on the first one. What is a physical abuse? A physical abuse is a type of abuse that many people think of when they hear the word abuse. It can include punching, hitting, slapping, kicking, strangling, or physically restraining a partner against their will. It also includes invading someone's physical space, making someone feel physically unsafe. There are people, sometimes people feel they have to bully everyone. They have to bully their wives, they have to bully people on the street. There are people who feels right when they are bullied, and they feel right when basajwa, not because they are respected, but basically because siena somandla besayithatha le behavior yakhe ayidlulisele endlini. Then in the end of the day, you want to bully your wife, you want to physically abuse your partner, boss, you are Batista of that space, right? You are the Brock Lesnar of that space. So there are people who are like that, who want to be respected by force, not reasonably so. And unfortunately, when you are in a relationship with a partner like that, I can assure you that is trouble, and trouble indeed, because there is nothing you can do. I know relationships, I know people who have no freedom of speaking to other people in front of their partners. You cannot talk to a person of an opposite sex in front of your partner, or else all hell will break loose. Or even if aka utlwela fela gore o no bua le motho wa opposite sex, whether you are in a mall or you are somewhere, it doesn't matter who that person may be to you, as long as you are talking to a person of an opposite sex. Some people can be very radical when it comes to that, and fight you and create commotion and create issues out of nothing. Edmund Burke Uri, the greater the power, dangerous the abuse. Right, there's a sexual one. While sexual abuse can be a form of physical abuse, we put it in a category by itself because it can include both physical and non-physical components. It can involve rape or other forces of sexual acts, or withholding or using sex as a weapon. An abusive partner might also use sex as a means to judge their partner and assign a value in different ways. Criticizing a person about sex or saying that someone isn't good enough in bed, it's another form of sexual abuse. Sometimes there's only one thing that you are good at. You are good for sex. Yeah, that's all you are good for. So you are making this person to feel inferior, to feel less of a person, to feel as if something's wrong, Kabona, because you have put them in that space where they feel like they are a tool for sex. All they know is sex, and all they live for is sex. All they are is sex. There are people that live under that kind of situation, and sometimes they can abuse you sexually. Emotionally, but at the end of the day, because you're afraid, because they've put you under some threats, then you end up wanting to sleep with them by force.
Huh? You love him? Huh? You love him?
Leave me alone.
You love him? Just tell me. Just tell
Leave me alone.
Just answer the question.
What?
Did you have sex in this bed? That's what's going on? I'm in jail. You're sitting here having sex with this man, is that right? Why don't you just tell me the truth? Why don't you just tell me?
Yes, Coley. We do it right here, in this bed, all the time, and it's great. Is that what you want to hear? Is that what I need to say to get you to just leave me alone? Just leave me alone.
And in the end, that person becomes your God because you worship them. Every time they want sex, you have to give them. You become their goddess of sex, so they have to enjoy sex at any given time. There's another one, which is a verbal or emotional abuse, which I want to dwell much on this one. As one survivor puts it, I quote, "My ex-husband used words like weapons, like cutting or slowly draining my life until I had nearly none left. I didn't think I was abused because he didn't hit me usually with his hands or his fists. I began to believe his awful lies, how worthless I was, how stupid I was, how ugly I am. No one would ever want me. He made me to believe that by the way he used words against me. So he destroyed me emotionally, so I could not even feel myself, and I thought that he was right by everything that he said about me." The tactics who words are feel very small emotionally, and then they abuse you, and they use that very hard on you, and until you have emotional scars in you that no one can see. But it is not the bruises on the body that hurts, it is the wounds on the heart and the scars on the mind. Because people don't understand emotional abuse. Ultimately, given enough time, most victims of emotional abuse come not only to blame themselves for all the problems in the relationships, but also to believe that they are inadequate and contemptuous and even unlovable. Once it gets to that level, you no longer exist. Your life because of the fear that we have within us that is holding us back to stand up against the abuse in our families. There are a lot of people emotionally because people they are less of a person, they are useless, they are nothing, whether verbally or making them feel it emotionally. So there are people who are good at that. They know how to play around with tactics, and they will make you feel you can even live into a down or quit or quit your career or quit an opportunity and leave into something important to you because you are trying to please them, because you realize that they know better. So you have to listen to them. They have to tell you everything, and maybe sometimes you are guilty of something. Then they use that guilt of yours to manipulate you, to enter you emotionally and control you emotionally because you are a guilty person. Because you are where they want you. Now they use that against you every single time. But all the time they will remind you one mistake that you have ever done. So they always want to play around that. They make sure that you don't forget that. And then there's another one, the mental or psychological one. A mental or psychological abuse happens when, for example, when one partner through a series of actions or words wears away at the other sense of mental well-being or health of another individual. It often involves making the victim doubt their own sanity. Some people can make you to think like you're crazy. Yeah, that's where they want you. They want you to feel like there's something wrong with you. Sometimes they will even create a scene, kaboom, and then in the end blame it on you and make you to feel like you are thinking like a child. You are thinking small. You are not good in thinking, and they do it deliberately just to make you to feel like you are a bad person. There's something wrong with you. You can't think for yourself. So there are people who want you to feel like you are weak upstairs. You can't think for yourself. You can't think straight. You always need them to think right. You can't make decisions by yourself. You can't make right choices for yourself because you don't think right. I always have to think for you. I always have to be there for you to help you to do the right things at all times. So you can't use your brains when akaboy. So they make you to feel like that. Sometimes they even tell you that you are crazy. The scars from mental cruelty can be as deep and as long lasting as wounds from punches or slaps, but are often not as obvious. That's a problem. In fact, even among women who have experienced violence from a partner, half or more report that men's emotional abuse is what is causing them the greatest harm. The next one is a financial or economic abuse. Because abuse is about power and control. An abuser will use means necessary to maintain that control, and often that includes finance. Because if you are not employed and the partner is employed, then they have you where they want you. Whether it is controlling all of the budget or in the household and not letting the survivor have access to their own bank account or spending the money, or opening credit cards and running up debts in their survivor's name, or simply not letting their survivors have a job and earn their own money. This type of abuse is often big reason why someone is unable to live an abusive relationship, because they take your belongings and they make you to feel like it is theirs. They need to use it on your behalf. They need to use it for you. You don't know how to use money. You know nothing about money. Therefore, I will use that money for you. So they take your card, they take your bank card, they take your credit card, they take everything, and they don't want you to open up accounts because they want you to believe that you're not good in finances. So there are those kinds of abuse that we have in our relationship. Useless. You know, they make you to feel like you are a useless man. All the time they will tell you just to make you to feel like something is wrong with you. And sometimes it's selfishness. Selfish to an extent. And does not care until I yet sang you in a limpete kakangwena or to hana taba that they are using that dictatorship to a level or operated to a corner or so those are some of the things in these relationships. The last one will be the cultural or beliefs or identity. A cultural abuse happens when abusers use aspects of a victim's particular cultural identity to inflict suffering or as a means of control, not letting someone to observe the dietary or dress customs of their faith, using racial slurs or threatening that you will tell people that they are falling within the category, the LGBTI. Sometimes they dismissive of your race or heritage or gender sentiments. Those are some of the things the relationship to make people to feel inferior and to use people and to make them okay, how straight, then they use those terms as feel as if something is wrong with you, and they enjoy it culturally. Sometimes msadi ha etse tjena ka ro lapa, msadi ha behave tjena monna tshwantsa be a etsa dintho ka tsela itseng ha o le monna tshwantse be hloye jwang wena o sa kgone ho etsa bana o hloye jwang wena o sa kgone ho etsa o monna jwang wena o sa kgone ba o shapa ka ntho ya hore o feel hore something is wrong with me hona le ntho e ke sa etseng hantle. So abuse is a problem in all relationships. I'm going to dwell much on the third one, which has to do with emotional abuse, because I believe this is one of the most greatest challenge in relationships, the emotional abuse. These other ones are equally so important, but I feel like we need to talk more about the emotional one just for today and dwell much on it. It is easy to mistake in relationship anger for abuse. Even though anger hurts and is frightening without the intent to control, it is not an abuse. At the end of the day, everyone has a right to be angry. People have a right to be angry. But at the end of the day, we need to guard against our anger, that we do not excel. Over time, anger can build up to the part of both abuser and victim. And emotional abuse can turn into physical violence. That is Beverly Angels. Often it's difficult to tell if someone is being abused, since the victim of emotional abuses have no visible signs that they have been abused. Their injuries are hidden deep within. Because and sometimes we feel right I don't care what you have done. Sometimes we need to stand up for ourselves and stand up for who we are, even though we know that previously we have done something wrong. There are people right now as we speak who are going through hell and high waters in their relationships, in their marriages, because they can't even voice out their views or show out their emotions. They do not have the right to be themselves. This thing goes for both partners. Sometimes an abusive partner can be a woman. Sometimes an abusive partner can be a man, for instance. A person who abuses you because they have lost respect for you. If they have lost respect for you, that you are the reason that they lost respect for you. Sometimes it's because you have done something wrong. Sometimes it's because you are guilty of something. But that does not give them the license to be controlling and bitter and be in charge of your life. They do not have the right to be your God. Sometimes you might want to blame it on yourself. The disrespect and hatred each partner begins to feel leads to more and more emotional abuse, and to each partner justifying inappropriately even destructive behavior. Laura Gaynor says, well, I went through some emotional abusive relationships and allowed myself not to be properly respected as a lady, though I tried everything I knew to be a lady. Sometimes, but babang, you are trying all you can to maintain yourself, to keep to yourself, but because respect ya motho, whatever you are trying, whatever you are doing, has I bona enough, you are not doing enough for bona, because now they have lost respect for you. Sometimes we need to learn to realize that respect comes first. If a person cannot respect you, if a person cannot respect you for who you are, then there is no reason for you to remain in that relationship. Emotional abuse is a non-physical behavior or attitude that controls, demeans, punishes, or isolate a person. Sometimes we use aggressive behavior with the intent to control. In all emotional abusive relationships, the abuser has the clear intention to humiliate, dominate, and shame his or her partner with the single aim to control him or her. For example, the abuser uses all types of aggressive behavior such as anger, threats, destroying or withholding items, and harsh criticisms to achieve control. The abuser sustains aggressive attacking behavior eventually that wears down his or her partner to the point where the abuser has full control over the relationship. For example, o beela nako ha o ile mo yang teng go fana konyane kana o tshwanetse bo so le ka haro ntlo ha o so kene ka haro ntlo ena ho tla nyewa also kene ka hare ntlo ena uzothola into ayifunayo, right? Then you end up living that kind of a life wherever you are not happy, you are not enjoying yourself, because you are now looking at the time and you are worried about what is going to happen when you get home. There are things that you cannot do, there is a freedom that you cannot enjoy, there are things that you have to limit yourself when you start thinking about this other person. It's an abuse on its own, so you must accept their authority by force. This is an emotional abuse. Secondly, an abuser believes that he or she is entitled to use his or her strength to control the relationship. Having power like a lion who is the king of the jungle gives one the right to dominate. So they will use a loud voice, a willingness to be aggressive and inflict pain. Having control over the finances, being smarter, being more sexually aggressive, or being a man are often seen as proof of power. For example, you'd find that muthu o tshwara ke ena muthu a tshwereng tšhelete mohlala, ke ena a tshwarang tšhelete ka rona lapa, a ba o fa eo a dumelang gore I deserve. It's an abuse on its own. It's an abuse. Ha wa tlameha wena o be le tšhelete, because ha o na le tšhelete wena o etsa diphoso. Ha wa tlameha o ba le tšhelete wena, because ha o na le tšhelete o etsa dintho tse tswileng wa fosahala o nana gore o smart, o nana gore o betere. So I must take that money away from you so that ke kgone o control, ke kgone o be matsong aka. So they make you to feel like you have no entitlement except to depend on them. You are weak. That's an emotional abuse by itself. An emotional abusive person is prepared to go as far as necessary to establish his or her domain. He has to always use his power. The emotional abuser may take away his or her partner's car keys, because or assert that his or her partner is crazy, and needs to be committed to a psychiatric ward, and use other psychological abusive mind control games such as confusing the truth. Confusing need. The idea is all about trying or weaken or ube weak, control and domination over you. They would wake you up at night, in the middle of the night, and repeatedly tell you how disappointed she is on you for failing to supply, for failing to meet, for failing to support your family financially. They will always use those things. Sometimes they will tell you straight in the eyes, useless. This is an emotional abuse. An emotional abusive person is ruthless in his or her efforts to dominate and maintain control. Remarks made repetitively to the victims, such as wasenya, they always they just want you to willingly give them the power to control you. Like, for example, all the time everything they are beginning to control. They will attack you ka bana ka nako tse ding. Ere ngwana ha etsa ntwe wrong, a ba sheba wena hore o tlo etsa eng. Ere ha qala ba re o etswa gore tatao ka pomao ha o gotsa ha tsebe o gotsa bana. All the time ha batla o shapa ka bana. O tlo ntsa o kena ka bana o tshwatlela ka bana. And they make you to feel like you're a bad father, or to make you feel like you're a bad mother in the end, because you can't discipline your children. Disciplining children is our responsibility, not a one person responsibility. And we cannot use same tactics to discipline children. An emotional abusive person uses threats and manipulation to control a person. The abuser denies the rights of a partner to assert his or her will. Only the abuser will matter, not his or her partner. For example, because you are successful wherever you are, because people respect you, you are a pastor, you are a leader, people look up to you. Then when you get into the house, hey, I'm a pastor, hey, I'm a manager, I'm a lawyer, I'm a doctor, I'm something here. So you must respect me, because people respect you. Now you expect your wife to respect you the same way that your congregation respect you, and you want to treat them the same way. And it does not work like that. They are not your inferior. They are not those people that applaud you on the street there. This one is your partner. We need to work together. We need to be in harmony with one another and respect one another equally. So it is very important that we don't use our powers or use our position to control one another. Or sometimes they will end up out threatening each other. I will tell people how you treat me. Come on, we pizza mruti mara 1 2 3 4 5. Come on, we pizza ka lawyer mara ntotso di etsang. And they look at all the scandals but to threaten you. So then they begin to control you sometimes. An emotional abusive person is negligent in his or her care of a partner. For an example, you may have a neurological disorder. Over time, you lost your mobility, and then the person would begin to neglect you and abandon you and remind you, it's dangerous to depend on a person for anything. It's very dangerous. An emotional abusive partner rejects taking responsibility for harming his or her partner. They will never accept when they are doing wrong. They will never forget or abusive. All the time go no wrong. Always, right? So you must learn. We must learn that we respect one another. Sometimes it's something wrong because yena boss. About driver atawe because kiena ngwe. Hana taba robe ama pilalo le kotsi nguluka kiena boss so he's the boss, she's the boss, so she can fix you all except himself. He needs no fixing. You need fixing, not him or her. An emotional abusive person is not concerned about how his or her decisions impact others. At the end of the day, to right or wrong. Sometimes then that again, it's an abuse on its own because we don't discuss here. An emotional abuser does not care about the individual's needs or feelings and opinions of others. An emotionally abusive person does not acknowledge his or her obligations and responsibilities. The obligations are high and the responsibilities are high, right? But they want to control in the end. They want to be felt. They want to be the one sailing an obligation. An abusive person is not willing to form part of a team with his or her partner. Rather, to the abuser, what is most important is his or her right to do whatever he or she pleases. Sometimes there are compromises that we need to do in a relationship just to make sure that things go according to the way that pleases both of us and makes both of us happy. And sometimes it's harsh judgment. An emotional abuser is critical of his or her partner, always criticize. Being critical is a way of maintaining superiority, which then justifies control. So they always criticize and by criticize. Celebrate, always when wrong. They criticize everything. How they criticize, how they criticize, how they criticize, how they criticize. So right when we as we don't go nje umuntu. An emotional abusive person feels entitled to have whatever and do whatever he or she desires. Come on, ke ena fela motho tshwantse ha fitla ha bona ba tsebo re twele ke nna ka fela ntwe o ibona ile tje ke nna. An emotional abusive person rejects the needs, rights, and limitation of his or her partner. When the victim protests that his or her partner is unfair or unreasonable, these protests are also rejected. They want things done their way and they reject everything when out and for an example, right, and your partner feels or no, right, then they start to make you to feel there. So something like I said, just for you to feel there's no more need for me to go there. Sometimes this partner can escalate the conflict because and sometimes they can use aggression to control you. They can use rejection to control you. They can use dictatorship to control you. They can use harshness or harsh judgment to control you. People can abuse you because people can abuse you because when you get out of this relationship, you are going to struggle. People can abuse you because they know you have nowhere to go. You have no parents, you have no siblings, you have no one. Therefore, they begin to use that against you. People can use you because they know that you are not happy where you come from at home. Then they took you and they thought that they will wash you, they will make you a person, then they can control you. It does not give them the license. People can use you, can abuse you because they realize it's all hauna matla motho fela wa modimo ya itshepela modimo fela hauna matla ha o gone o itwanela back. People can abuse you. People can abuse you because ba utlwisitse bohloko hona le ntho mpe mhlo mo metseditseng yona o ile wa mo febela ka mantswe mang kapa o ile wa ske wa ba honest somewhere ka ntho itseng. Then you end up finding yourself in that position where you feel like I owe my life to this person. I have to bow to this person and try by all means to please this person. You cannot please the next person if you are not pleased yourself. Or in Beverly Angels, emotional abuse is considered by many to be the most painful form of violence and the most detrimental to self-esteem. Emotional abuse and the insults and insinuations, criticisms and accusations slowly eat away at the victim's self-esteem until he or she is incapable of judging a situation realistically. At the very least, emotional abuse causes both abuser and victim to lose sight of many redeeming qualities his or her partner once had. You etsa o lebale le botle ba motho wa hao le dintho tsa kileng a di etsa le ntho tse molemo tsa kileng a di etsa kapa ba tsona ho wena. You etsa o cancel all these things and then you end up seeing fella this person e wena o mo bona. As emotional abuse takes its toll and each partner becomes less and less self-assured, each partner begins to cling to the relationship even more. Slowly but surely, the assurance and then you begin to start to cling to the relationship even more. This abusive relationship, the relationship that you deserve. Jesus. The emotional abuse is dangerous. There are people who are struggling with emotional abuse. Poisonous relationships can alter our perception. You can spend many years thinking you are worthless, but you are not worthless. You are unappreciated. That is Steve Marab. Or Charles Bradlaugh. Oriana abuses dies in a day. The denial slays the life of the people and entombs the hope of the race. My goodness. Abuse may die in a day. We can end abuse in one day, but the denial, because there are people who are still not ready to speak. There are people who are still not prepared to say and confess what other members of their family are doing to them, until we get to a point where we are open enough, we are brave enough, we are honest with ourselves enough to speak out, speak out, speak out. Listen to me. You have survived the abuse. Therefore, it is guaranteed to me that you are going to survive the recovery. If you have survived that kind of a situation, then you can survive the recovery. Recovery is nothing to you. Somebody once said, Richelle Godrich said, there are too many silent sufferers, not because they don't yearn to reach out, but because they have tried and found no one who cares. Hey, abantu abanandaba, abantu bangabukela isimo sibheda, abantu bashayana every weekend, bashayana every day, abantu bexabana kumfrifra, ingane zingazi ukuthi zilalaphi, ingane zihlupheke, abantu sibukela abomakhenani siyazi inkinga, but singenzi lutho, but abakare akidikeni asedaba tsaka. nna ke tsebe bothata ba batho ke eng batho ba rata mpo kena dintho tse sa tlamehang gore ba di kene tse ba tlamehang gore ba di kene ba itshola ho tsona. Says the damage and invisible scars of emotional abuse are very difficult to heal because memories are imprinted in our minds and heart, and it takes time to be restored. Imprints of past traumas do not mean a person cannot change their future beliefs and behavior. As people, we do not easily forget. However, as we heal, grieve, or let go, we become clear-minded and focused to live, restore, and emotionally healthy. That is deep down. Look, no one is perfect. We all have mistakes. We all have things that we are not proud of in the end. But that does not give other people a license to have power and control over us and use us as their puppets. That does not give them the license to do so. No one has to feel fearful in a relationship. No one has to feel inferior in a relationship. No one has to feel threatened in a relationship. No one has to feel like they are nothing. Get pissed because you deserve more than this abuse. Emotional abuse is the gateway to all abuse. Get out of that relationship.